Hiya, it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts, and today is the next episode in our Silhouette Seminar series. And what we're going to be doing today is the next element in the cutting part that we've been doing, and we're going to be doing a layered cut. So we've looked at a simple basic cut, we've looked at how we can make that basic cut into something a little bit more using the print and cut feature, although that was a very basic print and cut feature, and we will go into that in more depth. Then we did our mat and layering, which is like an essential feature of most card making, and now today we're going to be doing a layered cut, which is basically say an image which requires different layers in order to make that image look correct. So if it was a flower, you would layer up the leaves on the stalk with the petals, etc, etc. So your basic kind of images, but they can go from basic to quite complicated layered cuts. So today what we'll be doing is we'll be going into our library and we'll be picking out an image that constitutes the layering in the way that I'm discussing, and I've got a cute little image to use for that, but you don't want to do anything too complicated if this is your first time doing a layered cut, because the difference between this and your Cricut is that the only reference that you're going to get is the picture that you see in your library. So if we click on here, you will see all the little pictures of your cuts that you may have purchased or that you've downloaded for free from the Silhouette store, and you can see this is the sort of thing that I meant about a layered cut. I mean, this one here would possibly be a little bit more simple than say this one over here that's got a lot more going on, but what you don't get, unlike the Cricut, is you literally, when you click on it, the whole lot goes, all those layers will go onto your mat, and there's no reference as to what part, when you see the lines on the mat, is what. So sometimes it's hard to work out, well, is that meant to be a little ear, or is that meant to be his eye? And do I do it in blue, or am I meant to be cutting that in the purple? You can't always see, whereas obviously with the Cricut and its handbook, you were given what all the layers are, so it makes it simpler in that sense to work out. On the other hand, obviously with the Silhouette, you've got a lot more flexibility for creative design in your own right, so it's all a balance. But sticking completely with this, I think layered cuts in this sense are a little bit more fiddly to work out than perhaps the Cricut, but it's not impossible. So I'm going to do this little hippo here. So what you'll do first of all is obviously go into your library like you saw I did. You'd click, you may have put your images into little folders like this, and I will show you how that's all made in due course in another Silhouette seminar. But you then find the image that suits for what you want to do. So, and then you will double click on it, and it will put that image at a default size onto your mat. So as you can see what I mean here now. I mean, for example, you've got this piece here, and you're kind of thinking, well, what is that piece for? And you would perhaps then need to quickly flick back and reference it on here, or you can, alternatively, you can do a split screen and then you can bring up the image, but this is as big as it gets. You're not going to be able to make that coloured image any bigger, so that's kind of the best reference that you've got. So you need to sort of sit and look at the elements and work out, well, which bit is what and what colour will it be, etc. So it's a case of just sitting and just thinking and working out what piece is what. So once you've done that, we then need to separate this and put it into different set parts of your mat where you'll be able to put different coloured card on your real mat. So obviously you want to put all the darker blue together, all the, well, in this case there's only one red, but all the white, say, together, so that when you cut out, say if I put all the white in that corner, that's where you're going to put your white cardstock on your real mat. And the other thing is to maybe go back into the actual store itself and then you can search for that image, and here it is there. And then sometimes the picture is just a little bit bigger. Here we go, the picture's just a little bigger, so you might be able to work out what that is. Now I think what it is there's a slit. Now you can see here there's a black line, and what I think we'll find is that when we go back to our image on our mat, yeah, there's like a little slit here. So what I'm thinking is that we need to put a piece of card behind that slit, because if we put that piece directly over our hippo there, what we'd get through is the dark blue. If we go back to here, you'd get through the light blue, I'm sorry, because like there's the holes there for his nose, and there was a hole cut out for his mouth. Here is the cut for his mouth and cut for the holes for his nose. And if we just carried on and put this piece that we saw with those holes cut out directly onto the piece underneath, which would be the light blue, you can see here where the nose pieces are, it just shows the light blue through. Well, you don't want that where the mouth is. So I think what that piece is what you would cut out in black. You would pop it behind that slit, and it would then show, it would stop the light blue showing through, and it would show the a black through, or whatever colour you choose. So I think that's what that is. But sometimes it just needs a little bit of working out before you know what all the elements are for. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is just be sure that we're happy with the size of our finished piece. Now, we could ungroup it and just measure that hippo as he is, but he's reasonably easy to work out. We can pop him with his little ear up there, and we can see he's 1, 2, nearly 3 inches will be the size of the finished element, because that's the piece oh sorry, but we haven't included the balloons, so you're probably going to have about 5 inches, which I think's fine, because I'd put him on the front of a 6-inch card. So I'm not unhappy with the size of that, because don't forget, this is not the finished size of the piece, so we're just getting a rough guide. Now if we're sure we're happy with the sizing, and the reason we do it before we ungroup is because we want all the elements to be able to be layered, and if we ungrouped and then started resizing just one piece, it would be very difficult to try and get the other pieces to be proportionate. You'd have to do them all together, all like layering them up and making sure they were perfectly matched, and it's just making it a lot more difficult. If you did want to resize, all you do is click on that corner piece and take it up or down, and you can just see, you know, take a gauge on what you think the finished size will be. So I'm going to put him back to what he was to make sure that I'm happy with the size, because it comes to a default size and I'm pretty comfortable with that sizing. So now we need to ungroup him so that we can put all our pieces into the different corners or different parts of the virtual mat ready for cutting on our silhouette. So we're going to highlight the pieces by just clicking on it, so we can see that's done because the bounding box is around it. And then down here in the corner here we've got ungroup and group, so obviously we want ungroup, and you can see when you click ungroup there's these very faint little lines around the pieces. Now what you want to do is look at something like, say, the balloon, where you've got the balloon and then you've got little pieces inside of it. And what you want to see, in this case, we actually want to keep the balloon and the little pieces together as one element. So what you want to be sure is when you've ungrouped that it's only ungrouped it to the point where it hasn't ungrouped all these little pieces as well. If it has, it may be that you have to then go back in and highlight round that one piece, making sure to capture the other bits as well, and then regroup those pieces. Now I'm going to put my little chappy next to it there so that I can see what colours are meant to be what. So this piece here is all this dark element here, all this dark blue. So that, because that piece there, for example, would be cut out, these pieces would be cut out, so we know that that's the dark blue. And you can see here where those pieces are cut out and that element there is cut out, that shows you that it's the dark blue, because that's the paler blue showing through, and we think that that is the piece that goes behind, and you can see it fits perfectly behind the little mouth to create the black. So we're going to put the black just over here for the minute, and then we're going to put our light blue, which is this piece here. That's going to go up here, and I'm just trying to work out what this piece is. That looks like that's that, which I'm now just thinking that, yeah, I know what that is. Hold on. Right. See, you have to sometimes think it through and work out what's what. If you have a look at our little chappy here, you can see that in the light blue element, and we know that this piece has to be the light blue because there's too many pieces that are showing through from the other cuts that tell us that that's going to be the light blue. But then you think, well, what's this piece? It fits perfectly over the top of his head, so is that the light blue? But you know it can't be, because the light blue shows through his little nose, his little tummy bit and his toenails, and those pieces are all cut out here, so we know that this is the light blue. It's just by elimination and working backwards and working the layers out. So we have a look at this piece here, and we can see there's a little cut here and there's little cuts for his eyes. So you have a look where the cut is and where the eyes are, and you see that there's white showing through. So actually what this piece is a layer of white that is going to sit underneath this piece, and it's going to create the white showing through those gaps. And we know this also because if you look here, we've got the little eyes, but the only parts of the eyes that we've got are the black pieces. So there has to be an element underneath that is creating those white layer. So this is what I was saying to you, why we started with the simpler cuts, because it's not difficult to do, but it just requires a little bit of thinking and working out what the layering is. And you may want to start with something more simple, like I can just see down here, there's some balloons, which has perhaps only got 2 layers to it. So you may want to do that, but for the purposes of demonstrating in this seminar, I thought it would be more constructive to show a slightly more complicated image and just show how you can break it down. And it isn't difficult to break down once you just think it through, and if it's not immediately obvious, just work backwards even and think like we did with this piece. I mean, my first thought was, well, is that the blue? And then I realised, well, it can't be, etc., etc. So we know now that this is going to be white. So I'm going to put white down here for the minute, and we know that this is black because those are the little pieces of his eyes. So those are black. So we're going to put that with this black piece here. I will be moving these into different positions on the mat in due course. These are his little teeth. So they are going to be white. So I'll pop those down in that corner, just down with that other white piece. Now we come to our balloons. So again, this at first sort of look, you would assume perhaps that you would get a coloured balloon here, and then you would be cutting out these white pieces. But what they've done, in fact, is the opposite. They've created a white base, and this allows for these white tails to be part of the main part of the balloon here. And then they've created the coloured pieces with gaps, and the white will show through those gaps. So these balloons are in fact all white ones. So we're just going to pop those over here. I'm going to try and get them all so they'll fit on a 6-inch piece of card. So at the moment we've got light blue, darker blue, black, which I haven't positioned on the mat yet, and then we've got 3 colours of balloon. So we're going to put those in different parts of the mat. So I'm going to grab first my black, and I'm going to pop that up in the corner because there's a little bit more of that. And then I'm going to take my 3 colours of blue. I'm going to put one over on this side. I'm going to put one in the middle, well, sort of in the middle over there, and then one up the top. Now, it is easier for later to put them either right in the middle, so you can work out where the centre is on your mat nice and easily, or at the edges where you can count. Because when you put your paper on the mat, what you want to be able to do is think, right, I want to, for this piece, for example, 3-inch square piece of cardstock for this piece in the corner, and then you're going to cut it to size. You might want to do it at 3.5 just to be sure, but if you're feeling brave, you could do it at 3, and then you pop that piece in the corner. Then you get your white piece and you'll count. You know that you need 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 would be quite tight. I would do 4.5 by 4.5 and pop that in the corner. Same with the black, same with the light blue, and then the coloured pieces you're going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks up. I like to get it right in the middle of a block so that I know, right, it's 5 blocks up, so the 6th block and the 7th block from the bottom is exactly where I am. If I'd have put that in the middle, I've got to think, oh, it's the 5th block up, but it's halfway through it. So it's much simpler to put it straight in the middle of a block. You can see that because those lines are slightly darker. And the same on this side, and the same here. Now you could put one in the middle, as I said, if you wanted to, or if you have more pieces, but you just want to make sure that there's enough of a gap. You could put them next to each other, but the only issue is that when you're putting a piece of cardstock around, you just need to take that into account when you're putting all your different colours on one mat. So for example here we said, well, it would be a little bit tight to do that at 4 inches. So if we did have quite a few layers and we thought, well, we'll pop that one in there, that would be okay, because we would think, because we could do the card at 4 inches and then the next piece exactly next to the other card. But because we need it to be just a little bit bigger to be sure that we really do get it, you want to give that little bit of gap so that you can put your cardstock in comfortably. You don't need to have a massive gap, just a small amount, so that, as I say, it all fits in. Sometimes, I mean, quite often I'll have the card on the mat and it literally touches its, the next colour, and that's fine. You can be that tight, it doesn't matter. It's just about positioning it and making sure that all these work. And you don't want to have to do this on several mats if you don't have to, especially with the silhouette, because the silhouette does not offer that option where you can have several mats on the same project. I can open several mats at the same time, but I would have to save each one separately. So I'd have to call it Hippo 1, Hippo 2 or whatever. And what you would do is tell the machine that it's a 12-inch piece of cardstock. It doesn't need to know that it's lots of little bits. It's not going to understand that. There's no way of telling it. So you just call it 12 inches and it will be happy, because as far as it's concerned, it's got paper across the whole of its mat. Okay, so now we've got that all laid out on our virtual mat. What we're going to do is we're going to go across to our real mat. I'm going to cut out my paper, as I discussed, working out, looking at the mat here, what size I need in what colour, cut a piece of card in the colour that I want to fit that size of that element, and then position it according to how I described, again counting it all out. And it doesn't take very long, it's not very difficult to do. And then we're going to go into the machine, but I'll show you the mat before we pop it through to cut. Okay, so as you can see, I've laid out all the card, and you can see now what I mean about all of the different size pieces, and you can determine that really easily by just looking at your virtual mat. And then I've counted up for the middle pieces here, these little squares, just to see where they need to go. So that was nice and simple to do, and I've used American Crafts cardstock here, which I love to cut in. I think it cuts really nicely. So now what we need to do is switch the machine on, load the mat, and send the cut across. Okay, so that's the machine switched on. So now the obvious thing that we need to make sure is that we put the mat in the correct way. Now you can do it either way,
the arrow goes first or the non-arrow end goes first, but not that way. Only the two ends that is the arrow and the opposite to the arrow. However, when you've laid your mat up, you need to make sure that you do it in the same direction as you've laid it up. So I find the easiest way is to always use the arrow first and then follow on the virtual mat. It shows where the arrow is. So if you've laid your real mat up where the arrow is in the same position as on the virtual mat and your card all marries up with that, then you know that it's going to cut in the right place, because it wouldn't be the first time that I've put them on and then thinking that the arrow, you know, it didn't, I was doing it in the wrong way round and I put it in and it cut everything on the wrong card. So I find now the safest and the easiest way when I'm doing multiple pieces like this is, as I say, to match that arrow to the virtual arrow on the screen. So I'm just going to load my mat now and press enter, and then I'm just going to check my blade and all of that. So let's just go over to the screen and see what settings we need to do.
Click here, send to silhouette. It's just syncing, and then we're going to go to adjust cut settings so that I can see exactly what I need to do. And at the moment it's on copy paper, so I'm going to use cardstock. So it's telling me here that I need to have blade setting at 4, and the rest it will do automatically for me. So I'm just going to adjust the blade. So now we can hit cut on the screen, or send to silhouette.
And off it goes. So we'll leave that to cut and then we'll come back when it's all finished.
So that's all finished here on the screen. So now we're going to go, and all the cutting on the machine as well. So now I'm going to go across to the table and start putting all these layers together.
Okay, so here it is all on the mat. So now we're just going to pull off the waste from around the edges. It might not get some of the internal bits, but it will get the worst off. I like to keep my pieces on the mat so that I can see what layers are supposed to be where. I just find that easier until I pop it all together. So let's start putting them together. So the first element we need is this white piece here, because that's actually the first layer, because that's going to go behind our hippo head, which is this layer here, and then that will show through where those gaps are. If you remember, we were trying to work out what that was, and you can see there's a bit of waste left behind, so then that'll sit behind that piece there and show the white through like so. So I'm just going to get my Cosmic Shimmer glue and I'm going to put a little bit of the glue just around on here. Like so, and then get the white piece and just stick that down. And I want to make sure it's in the right place so that we get all the gap, all those little cuts are filled in properly. There we go, just slightly off at the back. Now you see I've got him slightly off centre there at the back, but that doesn't really matter because it's covered up the bits that we wanted to have covered, so that's fine. Okay, so then the next thing I need, I think, will be this black layer over here, which is to go behind his mouth. So I think that sits like that. So let's get the blue piece as well. That's just here, and then we can work out where it goes. It looks to me like this blue piece is bigger than yeah, it's bigger than the piece underneath, so that's why it wasn't fitting. So can you see what I mean now about the blue showing through in that little gap there? So that's why we've got that black piece. So we're going to, actually what I'm going to do is put the black onto this dark blue piece, because I think that will be easier to line up. So again, I'm just going to get my Cosmic Shimmer. Just put a small amount on there like so. And just line that up where it needs to go. I think that's that bit, and then I'm going to take this piece and pop it on top here, and you can see where its little toenails all come together, which is kind of cute. So we're going to take that piece, and I'm actually going to put the glue, oh no I'm not, I was going to put the glue onto the piece behind, but we've got big gaps, so I'm not going to do that. What I want to do is make sure that this section on his little toes all matches up nicely. Because there we go. And then we need to put his little eyes and his teeth on. So we've got the little eyeballs here. And I'm just using the picture for reference so that we can get them correct, but that said, they are cut out as sort of at the angles that they should be, so you could use that as well. Okay, so then we just pop that in there. All of a sudden he comes alive, doesn't he? And then take that one, and again just a tiny dot of glue, and put that in there like so. So there's the eyes in our hippo, and that looks really good, I think. And then we just need now his little teeth, which are down here in the white. So I'm just going to grab one, and again just a dab of our glue. And then again using my picture for reference here, I'm just going to put his little teeth in place. So one about there, I would say. And it wants to come off that bottom bit like that. One there. And then taking our second little tooth. And I would say that one probably goes about here. Like so. So that's our little hippo put together. And isn't he adorable? So now I'll just put him to one side for a minute, and we're going to put our little balloons together. So I need my white ones, and I just need to peel those off very carefully because I don't want to damage the little strings. And then lastly, we're just going to take the little balloons off there, and they're going to leave behind the waist, hopefully. And there's our yellow one. Okay, so let's take each of these little balloons, and then I don't think there's any difference, so we're just gonna take our glue glue and then pop it on. Like so. And then grab one of the bases and just stick it on. I'm just going to grab hold of it quick. And then I'm just sticking it down over the white so that it shows that white through, and it's got its little string coming off as well. So if you look at the back, you can see, there we go. So here's our 3 little balloons. I think they look really cute, and then here's our little hippo. Okay, so there he is. I've put it all together on a card. I used this 6x6 Echo Park Summer Days paper pack, and I thought the colours went really nicely with it. I arranged the balloons differently to how they had them on the screen. I could have had it that way around and had them going up the same, but I rather like the idea of doing it slightly differently. And I've 3D'd him using my glue gel, and I added a little bit of the green cardstock there behind the red ribbon, so we've got a little bit of all the colours on there, plus we've got gems in all the corners. And then I used 2 stamps from the same set that says hip hip hooray, or hip hippo hooray, it's your birthday, and I just thought that was really sweet with that. So I think that's turned out really nicely. And then on the inside I just added a little bit of the paper that was on the front just to give it a little bit of something on the inside. And that's it. So that's how we make our layers of images, and you can see that just by thinking it through, you know, what layer goes where and everything, you just need to give it a bit of thought in order to work it out, because as I said, it's not like the Cricut where they've kind of done that part for you, but it's not difficult once you just sort of sit there and have a little think. Some images are more complicated than others, and obviously some are much simpler. I would say this one is kind of in the middle. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this month's silhouette seminar, and I will see you again next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!